Welcome, guys. Welcome back, guys, to another video. I have a very special guest to me with me here today, Matthew Turner. He is one of the few coaches I was telling you about that have actually manifested a specific person back. Currently enjoying a lovely relationship with him. And today we're going to ask him some awesome questions. The questions that you guys are wondering about the most, I'm going to be asking him and he's going to be answering. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate you. You want to give a
You're
little bit
very welcome.
about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. So, my background in general mindset work, but specifically manifestation, has been going on for many years now. I've been manifesting for a good few. And in that has come many, many extensive journeys with specific people. My specific person that I'm with now is going to be obviously the main focus point, but money, locations, just everything across the board of manifestation. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today to share with you kind of how I manifested my person back, the things that I did, the things that I think I could have done better if I was to do it now, as opposed to, way back when, and all those kinds of things. It was a journey, and I'm excited to share it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah. So, what I'm really curious about is you get often, what's the best technique or what's the best schedule to stick to? Did you have a schedule and what did your day to day look like when you were manifesting your person?
Hmm. So I didn't necessarily have a schedule as in like do this at 1 p.m., do this at 6 p.m. sort of
Yeah.
thing. But I did try to stick to the idea of when I first woke up, do some visualizations of reconciliation and so on. And then kind of when I, got up, got ready a little bit, I then scripted a bit about the relationship. I tried to keep my mental diet quite solid through the day. And if I had negative thoughts come up that I could kind of just move past, I just reaffirmed being in a relationship. If I had negative thoughts come up that I were a little bit more challenging to move past, I tried to make use of the I remember when technique
Mm,
because I've always found that that technique was very beneficial to almost allow your mind to focus on some of the negative, but in a way that reframes it in a positive. So you kind of
mm.
give it something to chew on and to say, I remember when things were that way. But then by ending that sentence with, but now we're together, for example, it's reframing it in an abundant way of the relationship exists, but it also gives that sort of logical side of you to say, well, we're still kind of focusing on the things that we really want to focus on.
Yeah.
I found very beneficial for getting myself back under a bit more control and then moving forward. And then the same thing at night as in the morning, kind of prior to sleep, I would script about 1 or 2 pages worth of either affirmations or a description of the relationship. And then as I fell asleep, I did my absolute best to visualize that reconciliation again and try to fall asleep to it. And I kind of rinse and repeated that until pretty much the day that it happened. Really, I woke up to a missed call from my person, say a missed call, called him back, and then she was like, "Hey, I want to talk about this. Can we meet up today?" And spoke about it and got back together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that you touched on the whole fact of how to deal with those challenging times because, I share often is like it's so hard to manifest somebody back because you have the attachment, you have the heartbreak, you have the past story, you have I wonder what they're doing like continuously happening. And sometimes this manifests as very intense emotions in the body and very intense thoughts in the mind. And so I love that you shared the what can you walk somebody through like what that would be like in practice of let's just say that I don't know they're craving their SP, right? This is a very thing I remember going through what to do in those instances when you're like craving and you're looking for proof and validation and you're wanting to shoot a text or you're spinning. What would that look like in practice for you with I remember when?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to add a slight little thing in that I would do now as opposed to what I didn't do back then, because I think it just adds, it makes it easier and better.
Yeah.
So with things like craving or missing or anxiousness of not having and those kinds of things, they will very often manifest in terms of feelings in the body.
Yep.
Now, the way that we feel is indicated by perspectives and so on, but the body also has its own way of memory. If you've woken up every single day for a month and checked your phone and saw no text and got anxious, On that day when you don't check your phone, you will still find that anxiety kicking in,
Mm,
even though you haven't given it a reason, because your body has gone, we've woken up, anxiety.
yeah.
So, because of this, and because of those emotions manifesting in the body, as well as kind of your perceptions, I would always recommend getting yourself to a more neutral space first. I recommend typically through breath work because I find it the easiest. No matter where you are, what you're doing, you can stop and take some deep breaths.
Agreed.
But by stopping and taking a few deep breaths, you kind of calm the body and mind down. You get the air flowing again. You slow your heart rate if you're finding yourself getting particularly worked up, which just puts you in a better condition physically as well as mentally to be able to say, okay, I'm stressing about, let's say, for example, as you put there, that kind of like longing for them, that, what was the word that you used? Sorry.
Longing, wanting, needing, looking for proof
Yeah.
and validation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've noticed that I'm feeling these ways. I've taken some deep and deliberate breaths, really focused on them, allowed myself to release out any stress with the exhales. And I'm going to stop and go, I remember when I was feeling that longing and missing, but now I feel great because we're in such a loving relationship and I have
Mm,
nothing to worry about.
mm,
Or I have nothing to fear because I'll see them very soon, or something like that. Of course, word it in a way that would fit the individual's desires and circumstances to help they get their mind on board. But that's what it would look like. You take some deep breaths, you calm yourself down. I remember when things were X. I remember when I was longing. I remember when I was needing, attached. But now I feel amazing.
wow.
Claim that feeling because it helps with if you fake a smile, you're going to feel a little better kind of thing.
Sure.
Now I feel amazing because we're in this relationship, or because we're in consistent communication if you're stressed about messaging, because we're seeing each other this Friday if you're worried that they're going to cancel, or whatever it is. That's what it would look like in practice.
Love it. Love it. So another thing I wanted to ask you about is what do you think of the feeling aspect? Is it important for you to feel and actually identify with placing yourself there, the affirmations? Because I sure often like I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of affirmations because a lot of the times they're said without it meaning anything. There's not actually it's not felt when I'm saying it, and so it's not actually changing my state. What do you think? What is your opinion on that? Do you think that the feeling aspect of it's important or just repetition?
So I'm on both sides of the fence for different reasons. I see the feeling aspect like sharpening your tools before you use them. You could
Mm.
probably still chop down a tree with a blunt axe if you did it for long enough, but if you spend some time sharpening it, it's going to be so much quicker.
Agreed.
So I do advocate robotic affirmations and things like that because I have used them and I have found success in them.
Mm.
And just because I think that adding feeling may be better, I'm not going to deny, at least from my own experiences, the fact that robotic affirmations have worked. But I will say that if someone does take the time to sit down, get quiet, and really feel into those affirmations or feel into that visualization, you're probably going to feel better after doing it because you've placed yourself there, which may help with not immediately going back to those old thoughts. But also, I found that because it is like sharpening your tools, you will find that the subconscious mind has a much easier time taking it in. So, like I say, if you can take the time to do so, definitely do so. But I also don't think if you can't, at least from my own experiences, if you just do some robotic affirmations, that's not throwing it all away. That's not wasted time.
Yeah.
It's just you may need to do a little bit more, or you may have those negative thoughts creeping in a little bit more, a little bit sooner, because as you mentioned, maybe you haven't quite impacted your state as much as if you were to have really sat down and felt it.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I have too done robotic affirmations and it's worked. I noticed though that from in my experience by far, it's like when I can feel it, the movement is just drastically quicker for me. But like you said, I mean, it affirmations do work. What do you think of limited beliefs? This is a big talk in our community of I have these limited beliefs. I have these things that keep blocking me. Do you think they exist? Do you not think that they exist? And how would you what would you be doing in your mind if these come up?
Hmm. Absolutely. So again, similar to the last question, I am on kind of both sides of the fence. The reason being, I think from the grand scheme of conscious creation, limiting beliefs do not exist because
Mm.
the subconscious mind, once provided a story, will make it happen regardless of distance or regardless of how the breakup happened or regardless of any of these kind of things or regardless of your own self-worth, for example. But on the other side of that, because the impression passed upon to the subconscious mind is done via the conscious mind, if you keep going back to what you think limits you, then that limiting belief is going to have an impact, not because the limiting belief itself is a solid construct and is having an effect, it's because of where you keep going back to.
Mm.
If you, let's say for right now, I have this limiting belief that like nobody wants me, I'm not good enough, and the person that I do want is too far away, if I, from this moment forward, was to dwell in the end state and never consider any of those factors ever again, I'd manifest, regardless of having those beliefs previously. But if I try to live in the end, but 10 minutes later, I'm going, "Ah, but they don't drive, how are we ever going to see each other? Or XYZ regarding those beliefs, then it's going to get in the way, not because of the belief, but because of my dwelling in the existence of that belief.
Love that. So really what you're saying, and this is so important for people to hear, is that he was saying they only exist as long as you're conscious of them. It's the
Exactly.
consciousness that is allowing the belief to play out. The moment that you remove your attention from, and that's an important part too, right? It's not fighting with it. It's not resisting it, because I found that very act of doing that is giving it power. It's allowing it to live. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do is fight anything in this process because in order to fight something, you have an opponent, which keeps you in the timeline of that opponent existing for you. So while it may be scary, and I've been there as well, so I definitely know what it's like to try and turn your attention away from it, it's scary. But you will find that by choosing to allow yourself the timeline where that opponent isn't a concern for you, that opponent will fall away. But the more that you try to like, no, go away, go away, go away, the more, just like a bully or just like a dog that's chasing you or something like that, it's gonna chase after you because that's in order for you to be running, you must be being chased by something.
Yeah,
So never fight, always simply just choose something new to focus on.
love that. Now, as far as circumstances, this is always a question. This is one that's buzzing around. Have you what's like the craziest circumstances you've ever seen? I know at this point you've coached, tens of thousands of people, a lot of people, been known in the community for a really long time with manifesting a specific person, and one of the few who've actually manifested somebody back, not somebody new. What's like the craziest circumstances you've been a part of? Did it really matter in the end of the manifestation?
So I think one of the craziest for not my personal experience, but one of the ones that I've seen, and I'd like to hope that the information that they provided me is accurate so I can tell the story the way that I hear it. But there was a very big misunderstanding between them and their person's family, so much so that restraining orders and sort of court stuff came in place. Now, I'm not even going to try to pretend to know the specific law details because it was in the US and your laws are different to ours. So I don't fully know what you're talking about. But the story goes that there was an altercation. It was a bit of a misunderstanding, but led to restraining orders and law proceedings and so on and so forth. And she very much wanted her person. And their person, as far as I'm understanding from their explanation of the situation, still wanted them. But with these things that got in the way, it was kind of like a I want you, but I can't do this kind of thing.
Mm.
And of course, when the law's involved, a lot of people tend to then go, "Oh, well, there's nothing we can do, really." And with some working together, with providing structure to what they were doing, dealing with like the circumstances within their mind and how they were going to handle it, our time period came up and they went away and got on with it on their own. And about 4 to 6 months later, give or take, they ended up coming back saying that the person had managed to get as in their person had managed to get the restraining order dropped because
Mm.
most of it was from their family wanting it in place. And actually come back basically saying that during that whole time he couldn't stop thinking about her. He wanted to reconcile, but didn't know how he was going to be able to with the circumstance. But eventually he had managed to stand up to his family, chose her, and as far as I'm aware from the rest of that email, they're living pretty.
Damn, that's awesome. That is so awesome. It's, in knowing from my own experience, and maybe you had a similar experience, it's almost as if it's so weird. It's like you change realities because you're there and you're manifesting and you're doing your thing. And then all of a sudden, once your person comes back, It's just so weird because you can remember being in the experience where you were manifesting them back and there was all the uncomfortable emotions between you and them and the circumstances and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you're back together and it's like you never skipped a beat. You almost like shift to reality. Did you experience that same exact thing?
Absolutely. One thing that I've always tried to tell people when they're worried about time is this sort of remembering that the universe makes up for lost time. You know, there's so many people have friends and people they've met where they're like, it's like I met you yesterday. It's because your mind, your state, the universe that you're experiencing can make it feel like it's literally only happened yesterday, sort of
Mm,
thing. So I've definitely had that myself where it kind of looks like it felt like I've just jumped into something new.
yeah. Yeah. What do you think of forgiveness or revision? These are things that'll come up a lot. I mean, especially, and I went through it. There was a lot of like I felt betrayal, I felt heartbreak, I felt disloyalty. A lot of these normal human emotions that we have while being here. How do you deal with these? I'm sure that you had to have a similar type of experience. Did you work through any of that stuff, or did you do the I remember one as well for that, or what was your experience like for that? Because that's a lot of people experience that when manifesting their person back.
So I'm gonna admit that within my circumstance, I was the entire screw up. So I actually didn't really have to practice any forgiveness regarding manifesting my person back. But I'll speak on it from the perspective of forgiveness overall for other things, and hopefully
Sure.
that can be sort of cross-referenced with people in their journeys. So I absolutely am a huge advocate of revision because the subconscious mind, as far as my understanding of it goes, doesn't understand that the past, present, and future are separate entities and assumes if you're thinking of something and creating a feeling within it, it's happening now.
Hmm.
When we're revising an event or events, we're just changing this coding that our subconscious mind has to go off of regarding said events, changing the script and the program that we experience going forward. So, because of this factor, I think revision's a great idea. If there's something specific that's happened that you really want to move past, or you wish had gone a different way, or just anything about that event that either A, you can't move past it, or B, you just like to have a different outcome within your mind, revision's great.
Hmm.
Regarding forgiveness, if you have something that you need to forgive because you either can't move past it in the circumstance or it's holding you back within yourself because of it, because of course, while we do say circumstances don't matter, we're human and we will find things affecting us from time to time.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, I've always seen as this notion of if you get bitten by a snake, you wouldn't chase after it and ask it why, you'd stop and try and find a way to heal yourself. Now, if we do that, then I advocate that we do it emotionally and mentally as well.
Hmm.
Not just for our own mental and physical well-being and emotional well-being, but also going similarly back to that idea of resistance earlier. If you're angry at someone, that implies something exists to be angry about,
Hmm.
whether that's the past, a present thing, or a future thing that you're scared of happening. Your mind doesn't know that it's not this moment. So for every moment you're sitting there dwelling in a state of anger regarding something, you're just reinforcing the timeline where that thing exists, either keeping it in your experience or bringing about the very calamity that you're angry about.
Yeah.
So forgiveness, while isn't always the easiest thing to do in practice, is absolutely something that you should definitely work on, whether it's for your own well-being or for the success of your manifestation with trying to get your person back.
Agree.
And to do so, there are obviously a multitude of different ways, but simply just allowing yourself to let go of what happened in terms of how it describes you to yourself. Because in a lot of cases, from
Hmm.
my experiences and that I've seen, the oftentimes it's I feel embarrassed or I feel hurt or I feel betrayed or I feel these kinds of things because someone did something. So if we allow ourselves to not feel that thing because they did it and understand that it was a behavior that they did, and we're choosing not to let us dictate how we think about ourselves in terms of embarrassment or in terms of anger or in terms of these things, it can be very good for letting go of that and then going inward and doing the work and choosing to see them different, choosing to see yourself different, and most importantly, learning from it so you can notice when your mind is going the wrong way, potentially creating more of it. or noticing when their behaviors are kicking up that way so you can navigate it more effectively than, say, start chasing or pursuing or doing more, which puts yourself in that position in the first place. Of course, depending on what it is.
Great answer. Yeah, I love that. I love that. One other thing that I wanted to ask you that I think is just such a big thing that everybody has, and this was a sticking point for me the first time I did it. I've been one of the lucky ones that needed to do it twice because I didn't learn my lesson the first time. So, what about free will? Is there a such thing of the people that are around you that are appear to be behaving in a certain way? Are these people in any way, shape, or form opposing you? Are they doing so on their own accord, or is everything just an out picture of your assumptions about yourself and them?
So I do stand by it that everything that you experience in one form or another is a reflection of your internal state. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should be sitting there blaming yourself for things like, oh, that person is this way, that's my fault, or things like that. These people exist in the way in which they do. They only enter your reality because of your consciousness that allowed them to.
Hmm.
For example, let's say that I had a colleague that I've just started a job and he's an absolute idiot. People would sit there and be like, well, I didn't know this person, so how did I create an idiot? Your consciousness, potentially just an example, would have been that of, I don't like coworkers, they always seem to be idiots. And therefore you find yourself experiencing a reality where idiots exist to prove that to you. And this is why what you have in consciousness in one form or another you will experience, and that is why you need to keep an eye on your state so that you can ensure that what you experience in reality is up to scratch. But this is more of a self-responsibility as opposed to a self-blame. You didn't create that idiot, you just brought that idiot in for your experience. I didn't create you, I just, through whatever it was in the past, created this experience. If I thought all coaches were idiots, for example, I'd be sat on a call right now with someone that I don't respect. It's not because I created you that way, I just brought you in, or you just brought me in, sort of vice versa, sort of thing, because that's where consciousness resided.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that's so important is that perfect balance you talked about from responsibility and not self, you're not beating yourself up. It's not to, oh, I'm so bad or whatever it is. It's just like this outside reality is a beautiful thing because if I didn't have it, how would I know who I'm being in secret? And so it's just showing me who I'm being. And then I simply acknowledge it. Oh, okay, I don't like that. Let me change it. I got one last question for you. What advice would you give to somebody? You shared a lot of really good things in here that are going to be applicable to everybody in everyday life, manifesting the person back. But what would your biggest advice be to these people that, if they were to today start following what Matthew has got to say, what would be your biggest advice for people to manifest a person back as quickly as possible? Obviously, we want to put time frame on it because it's implied that you don't have it for one. But the more that you're like, I need this now, the more it just adds that neediness and clinginess. What would your advice be for somebody to successfully manifest the person back as quickly as possible?
Absolutely. So I think as like a very initial point, and obviously I'll build on it, is relax and calm down.
Hmm.
I get it. I was there as well. Joseph was there as well. When you have someone, especially someone that you've had previous interactions with prior, maybe dating or relationship and so on, there is definitely an urgency to get them back as soon as possible. But in order to get them back as soon as possible, we need to understand that we're aiming to step into the state of being the version who has them and leave behind the version of us who doesn't. The version of you who has them is not stressing, anxious, like giving up their life to try and get them as soon as possible. They have them, so they're relaxed, they're calm, they're content. With manifestation, get clear on what you want, get clear on what it would mean to be that version. If that means creating like a routine where you do 5 to 10 minutes in the morning and evening of visualizations and affirmations, and that's how you want to do it, absolutely. Find your routine and what you will be able to be consistent with on a day-to-day basis until it hardens into fact.
Hmm.
Because If you go until you think it should have hardened into fact and then you start crumbling down, you've either put too much expectation on that routine, which is going to trip you up, or you've created a routine that is too exhaustive for you to keep going with. Just like with the gym, just like with studying, just like with going to work, you have to find the balance of being consistent enough to see results, but not over the top to the point where you burn yourself out and end up going backwards. So to find that balance, the way that I recommend looking at it like is a recipe that you would follow to make dinner. You follow it to the T because that's how you know you're going to create the right outcome, the right dinner, but you don't sit there and stare at the pasta while it's boiling. You don't sit there and do each individual thing and not step away from it. You do what needs to be done, then you relax because you know that it's working.
Mm,
You go back to the pasta when it's time, you deal with it, and so on.
mm,
So, with your process of manifesting, find the routine that works for you. Find the affirmations that you enjoy, or the visualizations, or the process that you enjoy, and then do it because it's who you are, not because it's something you're doing to try and get something.
mm,
Do it, stay calm, stay relaxed, enjoy what you're doing, and let everything else around you fall into place.
mm.
The second you start getting anxious or attached or desperate, you've stepped too much into doing to get. Rein it in, few deep breaths, calm down. It's already mine. I'm reminding myself of that factor and then keep going. Rinse and repeat until it comes, and that will bring it effectively and fast.
That is fire. I think we need to highlight on that because that really is the key. You just talked about something so beautifully. Is anytime that we're forcing, we're fearing, we're working towards, we're completely in the wrong mind state. And it's doing it to be, not to get something. That is so huge. And and then the response you get all the time though is, well, I am doing this to get my SP, right? So it's like that's always a response you'll get. But you're so right, is that when it's just you just bunker down. And it's funny because when I manifested my wife back both times, I completely like removed myself from this outside world. I mean, obviously you can't completely, your body's here, but just centered inside and was just focusing on my inner world and not going on social media, not talking to people about my relationship, not going out to the bars and stuff. And I think that is literally key, is what you hit on there. That gets rid of so much panic, so much worry, the stress, the forcing, the I'm so tired. And it's like you said, because you're doing to get something, and that's not how it works. It's doing it to become. Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Matthew Turner with Thrive Mind Academy. His information will be in the details. Thank you so much for having us, Matt. Appreciate you a lot. And if you want some coaching for him, he's got some well, if you want to share actually some things that you have for people that are wanting to dig in more, that are wanting to, maybe get some coaching or get some information. Do you have like a website or do you have a store that they can go to?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website. If it's not in the description, it will be on of this video. It'll be on my channel. Just head over and have a look. I offer just sort of general coaching stuff on a one-to-one basis. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to use up too much time. But I have always been in the industry of mindset work. So if we were working together, it will be manifestation and getting you to the best version you can be as well. So if you're interested in being able to manifest your person or your job or your career, but also level yourself up in that process, as opposed to just barreling affirmations at a topic until you get it, then I would absolutely love to have you. But obviously, check out my channel if you've enjoyed this video and see for yourself on the content. And if you come, great, I look forward to it. If not, at least hopefully you enjoy the content.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate you.
No worries, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.